What's up, guys? Jamie Boom Boom here. The bee's knees, the cat's pajamas. We're here with the Red King, Rory Mac. Let's go! Rory, what is going on, my man?
Not much. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for coming. Yeah, we were trying to do this for a while. We started the Boom Boom Show. Obviously, you're a Tristar guy. We know each other for a long time. We had an Instagram Live. It's probably the last time we caught up. So what have you been up to, man? I know you're back in Montreal. You were in Florida for a bit. What's Rory doing nowadays?
Yeah, I fought 3 times in the last 6 months,
Crazy,
so it's been
yeah.
a busy year.
Yeah.
I moved down to Florida for 8 months because the whole COVID shut down here in Montreal. I just figured going down to Florida, I'd get a little more freedom to train and stuff, and it was a good place. It was a great experience.
Sanford.
Yeah, at Sanford MMA in Florida. And now I'm back here in Montreal, and it's nice to be home.
Yeah, the weather's nice too, I guess. You know, you had obviously less COVID restrictions, better weather.
Yeah, no masks and
no mask. I
yeah.
know. What is that like? Like, I think Florida's really ahead of the curve when it comes to maybe they just don't care. But what was that like, just walking around with no mask and being free? And you have your children now, so what was that like?
I loved it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's the way I think it's the way it should be personally. But nobody talked about it. No one really cared. Everyone just carried on with normal life. It's like COVID didn't exist. Yeah. So it was really nice.
That's cool. That's cool, man. So now, you were busy, man. You've been busy. Everybody knows you. Everybody knows you had a really long, extensive UFC career. You've been fighting forever. You started fighting at what age? Like professionally?
16.
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah. How does that work, fighting? Because I know you're in BC. You're from Vancouver or outside Vancouver. How does that work when you have to sign your first professional contract before you're 18?
Yeah, it was kind of weird. MMA back then, no one really did it, or it was barely on TV. So I think at that point, UFC was on pay-per-view, and they had maybe 1 or 2 a year. Like, it was really slow, the scene of MMA. And when I told my parents I was gonna fight, they thought it was crazy. And I told them, like, this is what I want to do. Like, I don't want to just like dabble in it. This is what my passion is, and I want to go forward in it. Anyway, when it came time to have the first fight, the commissions didn't really know how to handle it. And they said, my promoter said, just get a parent signature just in case. But in the end, they didn't even question it. They were just like, whatever, let him fight.
And what was the first martial art you did? Do you remember your first experience walking into a gym? Or I know you used to be the water boy back then because, you had known for being young and having like a crazy temper, because you would really get after it. And there's so many stories we can get into with Kenny Florian, guys coming to the gym. So what was your first experience walking into a MMA gym, or was it even an MMA gym back then? Was it a jiu-jitsu school? Or?
Yeah, it was a mixed martial arts gym, Toshido MMA. I was 14 years old. My brother and my father were driving. I don't know what we were doing, just running errands. And my brother said, this week we went to a class from my school, like a PE class, to a UFC gym. And they fight with those little gloves and they do all these wrestling things. And I was like blown away that existed, because I had watched UFC at a young age. And right away I said, oh, that's so cool. My dad seen that I was really interested. I wouldn't stop asking him questions. My brother was getting annoyed. So my dad said, do you want to go check it out? So I was like, yeah, let's go. And we drove there, and it so happened to be that they were doing their training for the professionals for their fights. And it was just a bunch of huge dudes, just sweated, bald heads, tattoos everywhere. Just
and you're 14?
You know what you would think about tough guys back in the day?
Exactly what you'd picture.
And me, I was a scrawny little geek, not I was like a dweeb,
Yeah.
Big hair. And I walked in there, and I just thought it was so cool. And I wanted to try it out. So we went to the coach, Dave, and he said, yeah, this is the professional time to train. Come back in an hour and do a test class. So I did. fell in love. I did jiu-jitsu and then Muay Thai that night, and I said, like, I'm never leaving, and I didn't.
Yeah.
That's
And
where
then
it started.
so like you're 14, 14 years old this time. 2 years later, you're having a professional fight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was super dedicated. Like, that was pretty much all that I did. Like, as soon as I got out of school, I was going to the gym. I stayed as late as I could. When I wasn't there, I was thinking about it, watching videos, and I was doing like grappling tournaments and like amateur tournaments, like for like point fighting, karate, whatever I could get like competition in. And then the coach David Lee started to see.
You're still in contact with him now.
Yeah, he's still my coach.
Yeah.
I mean, I still go train there. In my opinion, he's one of the best coaches in the world.
What's his base?
Jiu-jitsu and boxing.
Okay.
Yeah, but he's he's adapted to add wrestling and kickboxing. But his specialty, as far as like what he's good at, is jiu-jitsu and boxing, I would say. But he's just a great MMA coach. He knows how to put it all together and train his fighters to be ready for battle. So what was I saying again?
Or you're just talking about the evolution, how he started you, and how you were doing some amateur stuff, you were doing some grappling tournaments, you were doing.
So I was coming to the fighters training time with like
so the professionals and the amateur classes. You were doing everything pretty much.
I was doing everything, yeah. So he's seen that I was starting to do really well against some of the fighters, and he said, "Are you like interested in like fighting?" And I was like, "Yeah, that's what I want to do." So he started looking for other like kids that wanted to do that, and obviously back then nobody wanted to do that, especially like 15-year-old 16-year-old kids. So after looking for a little while and not having any luck, we ended up finding a 20-year-old guy who wanted to fight, and it worked out. And then from there, I just fought older people until I fought Jordan Mean, who's the same age as me.
Canadian, yeah.
I think it was my 4th or 5th fight, and it was his first professional fight.
But he comes from kind of a family of martial artists. It's kind of a different story than you. I'm sure he had people around him forever since he was born.
Yeah, his father.
Lee Mean, yeah.
Yeah, he's he's still fighting.
Nuts, yeah. In his 50s,
Yeah. So he raised Jordan to be a fighter from the ground up.
Yeah.
So we fought when we were both 16. Or 17, I can't remember. We were young.
A local card in Canada, kind of one of these.
It was his father's card in his hometown.
And you beat him
in Lethbridge. Yeah.
Yeah. We spoke to Ayman Zahabi, and I love to speak to guys that are real pioneers of MMA, because right now you kind of see guys come in. And do you kind of like? Well, how do you feel about that? You see the sport right now, and you see how hard you had to work and how you had to train with older guys and men, and you just kind of came across this gym. Now it's all over the place. Are you kind of happy about that? Do you think it's the evolution, or do you kind of look back and you're like, hey, these guys, like, how do you feel about that? The class right now was coming in because they have opportunities.
Yeah, no, I'm happy to see it.
Yeah,
I mean, that's you want to have the sport grow. That's what when I first started, I felt that it was gonna get there and keep going, that's why I was hopeful. Everyone told me, "Oh, you're not gonna make money. You're not gonna, not gonna do anything. No one's gonna pay attention." And now it's one of the most popular sports in the world. So, this is where I seen it going. So I'm glad that there's a lot of young fighters that are excited about it, and
Yeah, I see, like, Tristar, for example, the amateur team, you try to get after the guys and motivate them, and I just want to shake some of them and be like, hey, do you know what Rory went through? Do you know what George went through? Even Faraz and all the guys that went through to kind of be where they can fight every couple months. They can train with good guys. They know there's cards that like back then maybe people were pulling out. You couldn't even find a guy to train with, let alone a guy to fight with. So it's so much harder back then. It's kind of nice now that they have all those opportunities.
Yeah, I mean, at a different time, I talk to a lot of the young guys now, and they go through some different problems. So now guys want to pad their record. They don't want to take challenges, and some guys can't get fights. So it's a little different. Back then, it was a Wild West. People would fight anybody. It didn't matter, So.
And I find too, everybody was good. Like, you're talking about fighting Jordan Mean. Like, nobody was really doing it that wasn't good, because there wasn't enough people, You would just get... It wasn't what... I feel like, you look at TKO back then, the guys that George fought coming up, the guys that you fought coming up, I mean, they're all guys that you could recognize the names, which is quite insane.
Yeah, most people were fighting because they were passionate about it,
Yeah.
not because they were trying to build up their record to get to their shot at the UFC. They just wanted to genuinely get in there and fight.
Yeah.
You know,
Is it becoming like boxing now in that sense? Is boxing super developed? Maybe is MMA developing in that people are really thinking about the business side and padding the record, do you think? Does that come from boxing?
I would assume so. I mean, there's a lot more, money in the sport and opportunity and a lot more attention, TV and stuff like that. So people want to get to that spot, and they don't want to risk it by biting off more they could chew early.
Yeah. Okay, so you're in training in BC in British Columbia, Canada. You're a couple fights in. You're doing super well. At what point? At what age do you? I think you're really young when you fought for the UFC. At what age do you remember what that's like? Getting that first phone call, or did Dave tell you? I don't think you were already at Tristar for your first UFC fight, were you?
No, I was with Dave.
And then how old are you? And what was going through your mind at that point?
I was around 18 or 19 when I was right on the cusp of it. We were talking to WEC, and they had the 155 and 170 pound guys. And then when UFC had bought the WEC, the matchmaker went over there and was basically like, because we were talking to them about coming to WEC, he said, well, we're going to basically take all the WEC fighters and put them in UFC. So we'll have your first fight in UFC. So I was like blown away,
What was your record at that time? Like 5-0, 4-0?
No, it was, I think I was 8-0 or 9-0.
Oh my God! Already at like 18, 19 years old.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, I was pretty busy in my early years. My first 3 years, I was fighting quite a bit.
Yeah. Do you fight Cajun?
Yeah,
you fought Cajun Johnson. Yeah, exactly.
Cajun. Yeah, not too. I think it was 17 or 18.
Yeah, it's nuts. So you get the call. Now you're going to UFC, and your first fight. I think your second fight they gave you candid, right? Or your
Yeah.
Who's the second fight? Your first fight was
Mike Guyman.
Oh yeah, Mike Guyman.
Yeah, he was the
kind of a wrestler
welterweight
type.
King of the Cage champion, and at that time I was the lightweight King of the Cage champion, and I was.
You fought a lightweight?
Yeah,
I didn't realize that. Okay.
I was a lightweight all the way until I was like 19.
Yeah.
When I fought. You
say all the way like it's a long career. You were 19 years old.
Yeah, because I was growing. I was just a kid. I was a bit of a late bloomer, and like I said, I was a bit of like a dweeby, small, skinny kid, and I started to fill out more in my 20s, like early 20s, and so I started to not want to I was getting a little bit big for 155, and I saw my future at 170, and. The guys at WEC were saying, if you want to come here, have a couple fights. So I had 2 fights at 170 before I fought at the UFC against Mike Guyman.
So is that kind of what attracted you to Montreal? Because you do talk about, George was very transparent about the fact that he was bullied, and I'm not saying you were bullied, but you say, you were a bit of a more quiet kid, a bit of a more reserved. Is that what kind of attracted you to Montreal? Was George and his style, or was it really the gym?
No, that had nothing to do with it. Okay. It was just, I was training in a small town at Toshido, and my sparring was starting to dwindle. The guys were starting to focus on their work. Like there was a group of us, of I'd say 4 or 5 guys.
That's nothing. Yeah.
Yeah, but we were a tight group, and we were all pretty much undefeated, I think, and we were taking ground and all making a career for ourselves. But the guys were a lot older than me, they were in their 20s, 30s, and, some of them had families and responsibilities, jobs. I was just a kid, so, I was just focused on that. I didn't have anything else to really worry about. So those guys ended up having to focus on their careers and kind of put MMA and training on the back burner. So I was running out of sparring partners at that point, and, I felt like I needed to test myself against, other top level guys like, George and all the other amazing talent at Tristar at that time.
Oh my God, time, yeah. So Dave Wazo, Nordin Taleb, there were so many guys.
Dennis, and it was just,
Kang was there,
it was packed. It was crazy. Awesome room, and George was constantly bringing in great martial artists from
Yeah.
all over the world, Brazil, America. So I got a ton of great opportunity to train with amazing top-level guys and just to learn from veterans too, get good advice and stuff. So that was an amazing opportunity, and that's what brought me to Montreal.
That's a bro, yeah. So again, I just want to go back to the beginning of your UFC career, because when I watched the fight with you in Condit, man, it's so crazy to realize how young you are, and then you know how good he was. Like, they never gave you any easy breaks. You were always the guy that took the fights they gave you. So they give you a guy, Carlos Condit, who a few fights later is fighting for a UFC title. A few fights later is one of the best in the world. Do you know at this time how good Condit is, or were you just like a kid that was young? Because you went in there, and again, if anybody goes back, watch that fight, you're winning that fight until you get stopped late in the fight. Obviously, you're so much younger, maybe now you maybe would have had a strategy differently, but did you know who he was at that time?
Absolutely. He was, I think he was
WEC champ.
He was the WEC champ. So, he was one of my favorite fighters at the time. So I knew very well who he was. And when they offered Condit to me after I beat Mike Guyman, I was like surprised, shocked. Did not think that they were going to be put me there. But the young lion, that just wanted to get in there and scrap was like, yeah.
You couldn't say no.
No way. I wanted to go against those guys. That's why I was here. But in the end, I think the lack of experience against that level of fighter made the difference.
Yeah, that's what I want to get to, because Gabe brought up a good point off air. He was saying, he's talking about mental preparation, what fighters go through. Do you think your mental preparation changed from that point to what it is now? Do you do something different now, or are you more like like you said, you were a young hungry kid, you were a young lion?
Yeah, my mental aspects changed a lot.
Yeah, it's a big part. Yeah.
Sometimes I wish I could go back to that fire that I had in my youth. It's my life has changed so much in the last 12 years, and even more so in the last 5. But it's just crazy to look back and see where I came from. Sometimes I meditate on that. But yeah, I was a totally different person back then, and my mindset was totally different. My life was totally different. So, I approach things a lot differently.
Well, what changed though? What do you think, specifically in your mental preparation? Can you say was different before to now, building up to a fight?
Yeah. I think now, with all my experience and the fact that I've done it so much, I've gotten a bit numb to it. Like, it doesn't scare me anymore. When I'm standing in the octagon as much, it's still obviously you get that fear and adrenaline, but it's nowhere like it was when I was a kid, And even when I was training, there was just a different level of, the unknown. Nerves. Yeah, when you're a kid and you want to go out there and, see what you're made of. And I feel like I've gotten so much experience that I've gotten a little bit numb to it, I guess, and now I have a lot of experience, so it's technical, and I just try to stay relaxed, and I've done this dance 1,000 times, so just kind of yeah.
So yeah, again, I don't want to keep you here forever, because there's so much we could talk about. There's so much we can go over with the legend Rory Mcdonald here at the Boom Boom Show, guys. We don't ask much. Like, comment, subscribe. Throw it in there. You got to. So let's fast forward a bit. Now you're in the UFC. You're an established fighter. You're fighting for the UFC title. They give you Robbie Lawler. So what's going through your mind leading to that training camp? Because that obviously is one of the most legendary fights in MMA. It's going to go down as top. It's going to go down anybody's top 50 that's in there, even top 10 if you really get into it. What's going through your mind going to that fight? What was your training camp like at that time? Do you remember anything specifically before that fight? Because now you're a title contender now in the UFC. You're where you want to be. Yeah. No, it was where I was. I had quite a busy year. I had 4 or 5 fights. I had fought Robbie the first time. I fought, and I wanted to fight right away. He beat me by split decision, and I asked my manager in the airport on the way home, get me another fight. So they offered me Damian Maia. Took it, fought him I think 2 months later. That was such a brilliant performance. To beat Damian Maia the way you did, You know, I
Yeah,
mean,
thank you.
if you look at like textbook MMA, you know, you don't want to get taken down with Dave Maia. Well, you got taken down and you got up, you swept him actually, and then you kept on the feet, and then you know, textbook fight right there.
It was a good fight.
Yeah.
We had a really hard fight together. It was a memorable one. Then I fought Tyrone Woodley soon after that, just a handful of months after that.
That's another, my God,
and
man,
then
what a fight that was.
Tarek Safadine. So it was like a boom, 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 boom. And
yeah, you beat Tarek so bad he came to Montreal to train. He was like, I gotta see what this guy's doing.
Yeah. So anyway, we knocked out 3 good wins, and we met up with Robbie again. Robbie had won the title. George had retired, and it was my opportunity to take that spot. So I was pretty excited to get in there and to, you know, go after what I had set out for from the beginning when I was 14. My goal was to be UFC champion. So that was a big moment for me. It was a crazy time in my life. I probably wasn't as focused as I should have been. I was excited for it, and I think I had a few toxic things in my life that in hindsight I wish I could go back and take them out. You know.
Yeah.
But at the end, we still had a great fight. I fought hard, and you know, it changed my career.
Mm-hmm.
You know, in a lot of ways, and cemented my name in the sport, and I'm thankful for it. It was a great opportunity.
It's crazy because, you know, like there's always moments like that. You see the Ultimate Fighter 1 where the two guys, like, really people don't even remember that Forrest Griffin beat Stephen Bonner. Everybody remembers the legendary fight that brought the sport up, and that was one of those fights where you guys, whatever happened in that fight, I mean, yes, he won, but in the end, like, all you remember is it was a war. It was a war, and both guys are super respected. Both guys came out of that, like you said, more popular. That was one of those fights. It's rare that happens. It's like once a year, once every 2 years, where it's like, or like when Joanna fought, was it Zhang Weili, where she was all messed up, you know, her face after? Like, where when that fight happens, like, you remember she lost, but you kind of remember more that she's such a warrior for staying in there. Sure. And that's something about you. And I think that's something about your career. Like, it goes back to when you were a kid. You're one of those guys that were just too tough for your own good. Like, you talk about guys that pad their career now. You were just fighting. You didn't care about injuries. I speak to Eamon about this, spoke to Michael Ricci about this. Like, you're one of those guys, you never cared about injuries. You never cared about, like, your mental going up to fight week was always on point. You never, like, were negative. You just went out there and did your thing. And it was great to see you finally get rewarded in popular culture because of that fight, even though it was a loss. Man, you became a legend because of that fight. So after that, what's the backlash like? Like, we're not going to get too much into it, but what happens after that fight? What's going through your mindset after such a performance? Do you know right away that you've just made history? Because you literally made history in that fight. Like,
not really. I was just kind of choked at myself that I lost.
That you lost. Yeah.
I was just looking at it from the competitor side, and I lost my chance at my goal. So I was pretty upset with myself, and I had a pretty bad injury on my nose, but I was still, like, full of, like, fuel and, like, fire in me, you know? Like, I really wanted to get it back, and it just, you know, my nose just put the brakes on me. Like, I'd shattered my nose. It was just a mess. Mm-hmm. So unfortunately, I just kept injuring it in training, and it, you know, ended up, like, taking a very long time for it to heal because I was just not giving it time. I was wanting to train, spar, do all that stuff. But to answer your question, no, it didn't sink in to me about how, you know, that fight affected my career at that point. I didn't look at it that way. But I see it now. You know, I still get comments almost every day on my social media about the fight. It's just crazy. Mm-hmm. Like, years later, people still thinking about it, you know.
Yeah, well, there was that monumental, legendary stare down after the third or fourth round. What was going through your mind when you just, was it just like, you're like, yo, I just want to get, like, it was so intense. I was watching it as your friend, and I was like, I remember my brother and I, we were like, both, I think I was at my brother's house. Yeah, I was at my brother's house. We were freaking out. Like, we were both freaking out. I had chills. I was almost sweating. Like, what's going through your mind when you stare him down like that? Like, that, because you initiated that. It wasn't him. It was you initiated that.
No, it was him.
It was him?
Yeah. So I'll tell you a bit of backstory.
Because you almost finished him and then, okay.
Yeah. That in the third round, I almost finished him. And then in the beginning of the fourth, I really tried to go out there and finish him. But he held his ground, and he started to get momentum in that fourth round. And he was really starting to like he was starting to pick up speed midway through the fourth, and he was starting to feel me break in the end of the fourth. I could see it. I could feel it. I could feel the energy of it. And anyway, I've seen Robbie do this to people where he's getting that speed, he's getting that momentum, and he could feel that he's taking his guy out, he's hunting them down, breaking them down, and he gets in their face, and he does kind of like intimidation, like he'll walk you down. He did it to Johnny Hendricks. He got in his face, I think, after the fight, and just Johnny put his head down, turned away, and just kind of like didn't want any more of it. But Robbie's the kind of guy that the bell doesn't stop a guy like that. He's just a natural born fighter. And I always said, I'm not going to let that guy do that to me. I'm not going to let nobody do that to me. So when that moment came, when all I wanted to do was get back to that bench.
Okay.
That's all that I wanted. My legs were done. I couldn't breathe. My nose was busted. I was in bad shape at that point. I was completely exhausted. And then he stared me down. He spit to the ground. All blood came out. And then he looked at me with a, and he walked forward. And I was turning my back, and I seen it, and I was like, no, I'm not going to let that. I'm not going to turn my back to that. And so I stood my ground. Yeah. And that's where that moment came from. But unfortunately, in the fifth round, it didn't go too well after that.
Your nose, I think, was already broken at that point. It didn't break in the fifth round. It was broken.
No, it broke in the second round.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was pretty much, it was most of the fight that I was dealing with it.
Yeah, what's that like? So again, as let's say, I was a professional fighter myself. Fortunately, I never broke my nose in a fight. But what's that like, fighting through a broken nose?
Well,
because there's times when you're in a fight, you're hurt.
I've broken my nose in other fights.
Okay,
it's
so
not,
you knew the feeling.
That was the first time, actually.
Okay.
Afterwards, it's broken in a couple fights, but not that bad. Like Stephen Thompson broke my nose, but it was okay. It was whatever, just like a simple break. But the fight with Robbie, my nose was a mess, and there was a lot of blood.
And you knew it?
Yeah.
Okay.
It was a serious problem, but I knew about it. It was really affecting me. But I was putting on a bit of a
poker face.
Yeah, poker face, and it's just a different level of something to a different injury. When Steven broke my nose, it just kind of hurt, and I grabbed my face, and then I got back into it. But with Robbie, it would start it was in the second round, so he was targeting my nose with his straight left a lot. Every time it was hitting me, it was just
best punch too.
Yeah, and then in the fifth round, he was just touching it. He wasn't even hitting hard. He was just pop, pop, and it was just breaking me down. I was so exhausted.
Like a Chinese torture event.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's just because the fight was so incredibly hard, and there was so much damage put out. And there was so much fatigue, it really wore on me. Whereas I've had my nose kind of break or, crack in fights, it's not so bad.
Yeah.
But when you can't breathe and stuff with the blood and loss of blood and damage and the heat of the
And they say you shouldn't blow your nose either?
Yeah, and I blew it. Yeah. Oh, you know what? I think I broke it in the Carlos Condit fight too.
Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe like a fracture where
it
calcified over or something
like that, yeah.
Didn't get x-ray, you're just like, whatever.
Yeah, probably not at that time.
Yeah, I know what that's like. Okay, so a little bit better moment now for you, because those are obviously some crazy, they're great moments, but it comes with an L. Let's talk about, you go to Bellator now and you win a world title. I remember watching your world title fight with the guys at Tristar, and Rory finally becoming world champion was like 1,000 pounds off everybody's back, because we all knew it was coming, but we're just like, when is it coming? You're going to be a world champion. We all knew it. You put in the work, you put in the time. We all know you're the best fighter. You see you in Tristar Gym. We've seen you for years and years, like what you can do in sparring. So what's that like when you finally get like a world title around your waist, and what's the feeling like? I mean, it's not, let's be real, it's not UFC, but it's still a world title against a friggin' amazing opponent, Lima, who, man, that guy could do some serious damage anywhere. I don't care where he fights.
Yeah, it was a great accomplishment. That fight was hard. I felt like I was really dominating the fight with wrestling and my pressure, but I got one of those refs that just wanted to keep standing us up, and it was just I kept just taking tons of damage. But I was really happy with myself that I that I pushed through. My body told me to stop and everything. You know,
Did the Robbie fight help that?
Yeah, it did. You know, being able to break down those walls, looking back at fights and being like, oh, you know, I had more to give. You know, why did I stop? So that experience did help to shut those voices of doubt off. You know, when you're in a fight and you know you're getting hurt, you have a voice inside your head telling you to stop. It's just, I mean, you've probably felt that.
Yeah,
a lot
for
of
sure,
people have, and you got to be able to shut that voice off. And I was able to do that in that fight, and you know, it's something I was very happy with, to be able to do that and go out in the last round and you know, take him down and finish the round hard with ground and pound and win the fight.
And the guy, he had some devastating leg kicks. I mean, we talked about off air, yeah.
Yeah, that was one of the most painful injuries in my career.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was incredible.
People talk about that, like how devastating the leg kick is. It's just, you know, Faber says he still has damage from being leg kicked by Aldo back in the WEC days.
Yeah. It's
one of those injuries that, like, it's just annoying to take, leg kicks, right?
Yeah.
Especially guys who do it well.
And the calf kick is like kind of another level too.
What do you think about that calf kick?
It sucks, but it's a great technique, and I think Lima does it really well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So now you're world champion. Then you go to PFL. So now you're with PFL. Are you thinking of re-signing with them? What's gonna happen next season, or do you know anything about it?
I got one more season left on my contract with them.
Okay.
So I'm really gonna focus this time on getting myself ready so I can go out there and win that season. I think that's crucial for my career going forward. If I lose one of these fights this year, it's not a good thing for my career. So I'm super focused on going out there.
But are you gonna fight again this season, or it's gonna be next season?
It's gonna be next season. I'm done for this season.
Mm-hmm.
So
do you like that style, the season with the playoffs and everything?
Yeah, there's good and bad. I fought 3 times in 6 months, back-to-back training camps. So,
and the guys are good too.
Yeah, they're good.
Really good guys now that they got.
Yeah, it's just the training camps, like back-to-back, no rest. It's a test. You know, that's really not easy, especially the weight cuts too. It all takes its toll. So you got to be ready for that. And I'm going to be better prepared for it this year coming up.
We bet, man. We want to see you kill it. We want to see you do well. Obviously, look, you there was a weird loss there to Tebow, which after the backlash was the MMA gods were giving him his win back because he's supposed to beat Khabib. He fought Khabib, and like everybody says he won that fight. If you go back and watch, it's very debatable. But what's going through your mind when like decisions like that happen? If anybody doesn't know, you lost a split decision loss to Tebow, and again, I'm your friend, maybe I'm biased, but I've spoken on the internet. You could just see the backlash. Like,
yeah,
it's crazy.
I obviously I felt in my heart that I won, getting this, and I've had fights where I've lost decisions that I felt that I won.
Mm-hmm.
But this one was very obvious, and it was nice to have like the internet outpouring of like support, so that really softened the blow. I didn't take it too hard because of that, and it's just one of those things that you can't control. I did what I felt that I needed to do to win the fight, and it just didn't work out in the judges' eyes, so you move forward.
So now you have, we won't get too much into it, but the 170, the final is going to be Cooper against, I think, the Russian, or?
Yeah, Magomed Karamov, yeah.
Karamov. How do you see that fight going in the finals of the PFL 170 tournament?
I think it's tough because, Karamov's stand-up is not as good as Ray's, and Ray's punching power is, it's very dangerous. But Karamov has a way of getting it to the ground, and I think he's going to edge him out if he gets him there. But I don't think Ray will be because they fought before. He rushed him, and that ended up being the reason why he got taken down.
Yep.
I think he'll be a little bit more easygoing this time and try to just keep it standing, be a little bit more safe.
Did that surprise you with your fight with Ray Cooper, like how much he came forward and tried to wrestle you? Because,
the wrestling surprised me for sure. I thought he was going to want to keep it standing, but I knew that he was going to come forward, like as far as striking. But yeah, he definitely. I wasn't prepared for the wrestling.
That's awesome, man. Well, yeah, I mean, so what's next for you? I guess now you finally have some time off. You just did one of your your crazy Rory Mcdonald 3 fights a season. You know, like you're so known for doing, just getting in there and banging. And now you have some time off. What are you gonna focus on right now?
Now I'm going to focus on some strength and conditioning. I got to get my body strong. I think that's something that I really neglected the last little while. So I'm going to be doing a lot of that and just focusing on a few martial arts things that I want to strengthen going into the next season.
Yeah, that's awesome. So we're always evolving, I guess. You know, we're just always trying to find the little kinks and tools. Yeah, man, Rory, we know you're gonna do it, man. Another world title for you is just gonna be like what a cherry on top of a crazy career if you become another one. But like I said, all the best, good luck, and again, PFL's lucky to have you, man. They've got a legend in the sport, and you're gonna be entering that tournament now, and maybe you'll be more of the underdog now, or maybe it's just gonna be back to the old Rory ways where you have your back against the wall. You're a kid again walking to the gym. You know, the Red King is coming back. Watch out for the PFL season. Rory, thanks, man. We hope to see you soon. Thanks for doing this. And again, you have anybody, like any sponsor or anything you want to say, or any last words?
No, I appreciate the time to come and chat with you.
Yeah, it was super fun, man. Super fun. Guys, thank you very much. That's it for the Boom Show. Like, comment, subscribe. That's the Red King, Rory Mcdonald, legend in the MMA game. We have him here on the Boom Show. We are lucky. We are thankful. BTC Studios. Peace.